Congratulations, that marks the collaboration between YYC Holdings and Help University. Shall we take a picture together? Ladies and gentlemen, right after this, I would like to call upon the VVIPs to come on stage and take a group photo together, because you have now together with us to witness this very special moment between Help University and YYC Holdings. We call upon Mr. Chow, Mr. Ding, Dr. Grace, and Dr. Nicholas Lom. Ladies and gentlemen, please come on stage and we shall take a group photo together. This is a very special day and we need you to be in the picture. Alright, okay, we have everyone on the stage and please take a picture together at the center. Yeah, we have our photographer right there. Okay, thank you very much. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you, Dato. Please be seated. Thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, allow us to have a few moments to make a setup for our forum. In this forum, we're going to talk about the war between Ukraine and Russia, and of course the impact to the industry, the economic, especially the SME of Malaysia. Sometimes we couldn't imagine actually war will happen in our century, in our lifetime, because we would not see this kind of conflict happens between country and country. But sometimes we couldn't just control, the countries or the nationals that having different conflicts of interest. So that's what happened right now. The war is on, and how would it end? So we do not know yet, but we are now discussing about the impact that it will bring not only to the national, the international economy, but also the economy of Malaysia. 我们在现在国际间最重视的一个话题不外乎就是乌克兰跟俄罗斯之间的战争我只能够问问大家现在手上有多少金呢？有吗？If you hold good amount or volume of gold, I believe that you are quite happy right now. The price are raising. But of course, for the SMEs, for the business industry, for the entrepreneurs, we are worrying about the future, the stability about at the national economic, and of course the international environment as well. So today we're going to discuss and we'll see how our panels respond or give comments about the war and the impacts, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call upon the panel judges. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Paul, together with Datin, please come on stage first, and we're going to have our panel later, okay? Okay, and of course, we're going to have Mr. Ding, Dr. Grace to come on stage, and together with Dr. Nicholas as well. But allow us to have Dato and Datin to be at the center. And Dr. Lam, you can have a seat right over here. And Mr. Ding and Dr. Grace will be sitting over there. Oh, Dato don't want to sit at the center. So Mr. Ding, you will be sitting at the center lah. Okay. It's okay as long as everyone is comfortable with the seating, and that is a very important part because we need the panel to share with us his or her comments about the topic. And of course, not only we have our guests right here inside the hall, but we have our guests watching the forum right here from Facebook Live. As you can see, there is a camera right here. So we have the audience from all over the world, the fans of our page of YYC, and of course Help University as well. So we're going to begin with the forum, shall we? Gentlemen, ladies, yes? Okay, I think we're going to have Dato to begin, maybe to let us know a little bit about the background of this news, Dato. What's your comment, or how would you let us know about the conflict of Ukraine and Russia, and why is it happening, the war in between these two countries, and related to some other countries as well, like the United States of America, the NATO, and etc.
Okay, those of us who know a little bit about European history would find it a very interesting episode in our human history. I mean, Europe has been going through numerous wars and local battles amongst the tribes, emerging nations and so on, until the Second World War. So there's nothing new about all these partitions and divisions, but what is surprising to some people is that it happens again after a long period of time, after the Second World War and so on. And if you look at the development of the history of Ukraine, Russia, and the neighboring countries, they are very close. For example, Ukraine has been partitioned many times by neighboring countries, in particular Poland, Germany, Russia, and so on. I think what triggers the present crisis is that Russia feels that there should be no expansion of NATO into Ukraine. Number two, Ukraine should also, if possible, not be an EU member. And the third one is to introduce and establish a democratic government, which by definition and logic, according to Western powers, is pro-Western or pro-US, is something not easily acceptable by President Putin. So this is a sort of a threat to the nation of Russia, especially after 1991, when it disintegrated. So the expansion of NATO has been coming closer and closer to the eastern side next to Russia. And if Ukraine becomes a site for nuclear weapons and so on, so it is a very serious existential threat. So that's the background to the whole exercise of why Russia has this invasion.
Yeah, the people are actually discussing whether Russia is reasonable intrude or attack Ukraine based on the worrying of President Putin, because he's worrying about the effect of the United States or the Western country would go in front of his country, so that it would affect a lot to Russia. So he decided to go into Ukraine first before the Western country and all things came in with all the weapons of stuff. But we would like to discuss about the impact. What's the impact of this incident to worldwide?
Yes, there's a lot of serious impact and vast consequences worldwide. So although at the moment the war is localized to that part of the world, but because of the interconnectivity of the world economy, and because the war has impacted through financial sanctions, disruptions in the supply chain, and the impact on commodity prices. So it is no more localized anymore.
Yeah.
All the payment system, the critical supplies from, in particular, Russia of like titanium, wheat, palladium, and coal, oil, gas. They are not a small provider and producer of all these critical commodities. And the control over air traffic, land and sea, all these disruptions in transportation definitely would give rise to begin with, disruption in the financial market. Like this morning, Hong Kong's share market, the Hang Seng, has fallen quite seriously in anticipation of various possible sanctions on different countries, maybe even involving China and so on. So this psychological fear, besides the real destruction of facilities, human lives, are very costly because there's a huge opportunity cost that cannot be solved immediately. You cannot reconstruct cities, farmlands, factories, transportation systems and so on overnight. Yeah. So the impact is tremendous, and of course the countries next to Russia, Ukraine would suffer the most immediately. If there is a disruption, and already has happened, or a denial of gas, oil, countries like Germany and so on would suffer. But at the same time, because Ukraine and Russia produce critical commodities that would affect fertilizer prices and all other prices. So this will impact the world in terms of increasing hunger, poverty, malnutrition, inequalities among nations and so on. So it is not something that is localized anymore. And therefore, the weaker countries that at the moment cannot even take care of its pandemic problems will find it more difficult to look at the challenges of new problems. Really the Fed, that is a Federal Reserve, and the European Central Bank find it difficult to manage the monetary policy, whether to raise interest rates or not. And of course, all this have severe impact on smaller economies. And for example, Myanmar, Cambodia, even Indonesia, even Malaysia would one day find a very serious challenge in the food security, food supplies and so on. So we have to really look at some of these very critical issues, especially in food production and food security. So there are lots of such impacts.
我们经常都可能会觉得，这乌克兰跟俄罗斯距离马来西亚其实挺远的，尤其是东南亚。但刚刚大家都一说呢，其实以现在我们全球化的世界，所有东西其实都是联系的，包括我们的运输、我们的食物供应，所有我们的原材料、我们的经济、金融的体系，其实都是连接在一起的哈。只要一个部分断掉，基本上呢，现在都会面对很大的危机，尤其是现在俄罗斯面对很大的一个杯葛行动，对吧？大家都说我要杯葛俄罗斯，不要跟他的金融做交易不要买他的东西，包括他们的这个天然气。但问题是，俄罗斯呢也其实提供相当大量的供应给世界上其他的地方天然气也好，这个金属啊等等等等的，所以这个就会影响到供应链那可能我们要请Mr. Ding President Ding 来给大家讲一讲这个东西目前在马来西亚都中小企业已经有开始感受到这个影响了吗？
这个两国战争来讲的话，就是等于我们全世界的经济的战争。第一你看那个两国战争它的粮食，它的那个小麦跟这个玉米小麦就是供应全世界1/3。所以我本身做食品的，你说面粉会涨价吗？一定涨价。所以这个战争来讲的话，整个欧盟是很悲哀的。为什么？食品它大多部分全部是从这两个国家运过来，所以尤其是西方国家，他们吃的面包特别多，所以他们的影响很大。所以我们本地的厂家每一个都会有影响。有的人如果有做在这个Russia的生意跟那个乌克兰的生意的话，那尤其是苏联的，我本身也是有做苏联的生意，每一年涨20%到30%。你看这次container还没有那个柜还没有到那边，钱要过来的时候又卡住了。所以这个两个国家都是影响，我认为是说，我的看法是说，全部都是影响全世界，连包括我们马来西亚，尤其是我们马来西亚中小型。我们马来西亚中小型这2年多在疫情方面都已经沉到海底了，然后又这个打仗又来的话，你说怎么办？ 一定是说原料一直起价，船运起价。现在船运的话，你大概去那边是5-6千美金，现在要3万美金。可是船会到那个苏联那边嘛，所以这个两国打仗来讲，不是说只是说我们其他的做生意的人，你们消费者的人，尤其是食品的，一定涨价的，你们的东西全部涨价的。所以这个是一个全世界性的了。
是，这个其实对国家的经济来说是一个很严重的影响哈，尤其是大家看这个油价一直不断的在涨。那马来西亚呢，虽然我们的油是有国家的津贴，可是这个就会对国库造成一定程度的影响。我们之前还跟大店谈到啊，这个物流啊已经是非常的成本已经高了，然后呢加上很多原材料都买不到，那个时候还没有打仗，我们已经说这个原材料已经面对短缺，造成很多行业，尤其是像重工业的，大家的成本已经不断的上升。结果呢，过了不久就发生了这个战争。所以您本身怎么看呢，大店？就是那马来西亚的中小企业家要怎么办啊？年头我们才说我们要准备啊，就要往前走。现在又有一个这样的情况。
我觉得对于中小企业来说，真的是好像丁讲的，挑战很大。但是就是我们应该怎么办呢？就是等吗？还是应该在这个战争里面，还是这个 crisis 里面，再一次的找到机会哦？因为尤其是中小企业，我们不可以，很多中小企业可能就是等整个 virus 过了，还是等经济好了，还是等很多东西。但是我们都知道，如果只是等呢，其实讲得不好听一点是等死啊。所以在这样子的情况之下，even 都挑战很大。尤其现在我们发现的 inflation 又有油价又起，freight charges 又高，然后请人也很难。所以在这样子的状况之下呢，是不是中小企业家更加需要去很清楚知道自己的方向是要去到哪里？所以当方向清楚了，这样 resource 就放在方向那边。不然我觉得很多时候 resources 为的是人才也好，钱也好，如果没有安排好的话，没有一个很清楚的方向，可能就会是浪费了。所以在这个时候，中小企业家更加需要去想，老板们需要去想，到底未来今年要达到什么东西？因为机会还是有的，只是自己的 resources 要放在哪里，强项在哪里，然后要怎么样解决。我觉得我们都要很认真的去解决现在的问题，不要只是放在一边这样子。
Okay. Any comment from Dr. Grace? I mean, on behalf of the SME Association, or any response or feedbacks from the SME community?
I think the challenges that we are facing now is double sword. Because earlier on, that was in like December last year, Q4 last year, we were already facing the domestic inflation. So, and now it's actually imported inflation. Especially, although Malaysia is actually exporter countries, the hike in terms of the crude oils, or even though now with the because of the situations, you will see that I mean globally people will take the alternative instead of buying the sunflower seed oil, or even though these the soya oils from another countries, but the inflation has become due to supply issue. Supply issue with the hike of interest rate, like what Professor Datuk Paul was mentioning, it makes the central banks very difficult because commonly when we use the interest rate monetary policies to to manage the inflation, but now the situation is the inflation is due to supply. It becomes very, very difficult. So especially now, you can see that recently, especially in the past 2 to 3 weeks, you can see that ringgit is weakening. When ringgit is weakening, meaning to say that if your supply chain is actually import from other countries, your cost of doing business has become very expensive. Although Malaysia is an oil export country, and definitely this war it actually benefit the oil and also the crude oil, palm oil as well. But we are also the user, especially those SME. In Malaysia, it's about 97% SME business. So, the tariff is already mentioned, which is the Naga already mentioned that they were going to increase the electricity. So with the hike in terms of the what we call the oil, it actually gives more pressures to tenaga see whether they want to adjust further. So once it adjusts further, then meaning to say that it added the fixed expenses to the SME.
Yep.
And like what Mr. Ting mentioned, many food business, we actually need to use oil.
Yeah.
So although Malaysia has a lot of palm oil, but with the supply pressure, the price will increase.
Yep.
But the demand is still there. So with the hike in terms of the price for this cooking oil, which is palm oil, again, it actually increased the cost of food. The food cost will increase. So who is going to bear all these costs? Because now we are facing the double sword, which is domestic inflation and also imported inflation, and also the fixed cost. So the cost of doing business from the point of food cost, from the point of the logistic cost because of the situation, and also the fixed cost is so expensive. Who is going to bear this cost? So meaning to say that, like what Mr. Ting mentioned, how are we going to sustain? How were SMEs going to sustain? Because you can't be running negative profit.
Yeah.
So they were going to increase the price. Yeah. When they increase the price, then consumer today you will still see that the inflation rate, the unemployment rate is still quite high, and the government is still talking about the minimum wages and so forth. And foreign workers in Malaysia is yet to resolve. You will see that productivity is already an issue. So the pocket, the pocket of the consumer also very thin.
Yeah.
So with when the consumer is not able to spend so much, so where is the demand?
Yeah.
So when the demand it face a challenge, but yet the supply side is out of our control. What will be the situations in terms of the GDP in Malaysia?
I see. So
hence, I think we have to quickly actually look into the situations, like what the Datin has mentioned. Well, although we also face a threat, but the SME will need to actually sit down to rethink what should be the alternative solutions to move forward. For those who actually study economic law, when there is a threat, there is an opportunity. So how are we looking into the situations and the opportunity is SME export? Yeah. Because if our currency is weak, then you will attract more people to buy because the PPP will come in. I mean, this is my opinion.
That also builds on if you have a very good value on your products or your services. So like what Dato mentioned just now, you know, the inflation, the raise of cost, and of course we are having pandemic, not forgetting we are having a pandemic right now. We thought that we have almost solving the pandemic, but it seems that we are not there yet. Okay, still long way to go. So it seems that a lot of pressure, especially for the consuming power of cash power and etc. like that. And the other issue we are having right now is losing of jobs in the community. Some people say that they are very difficult to find a job because most of the businesses, they don't want to hire a lot of talents with a very high fixed cost. So maybe Dr. Nicholas, you can give some comments about this. Is this affecting the community and then the businesses, especially the talent part and stuff?
Right. In terms of human capital, I think many businessmen, especially the SMEs, have been complaining there's actually a shortage, there's a demand, but the supply of the labor is not there.
Yep.
Right. So it's a structural issues. There are people who can work, but they choose not to work, or they work in a gig economy because of the technologies that are available to them. Mm-hmm. So they choose not to do the traditional employment.
Yeah.
Right. However, as Dato' Grace has mentioned, right, in any situations there are threats and there are opportunities. So in this, what the Chinese says, 乱世, in a world of uncertainty, the one with clear mind, clear strategies, as Datin mentioned, right, SMEs or individuals will chart the path for themselves. So the question is, who are ready. Are we ready for the next opportunities? So through education and help, we do provide platforms for people who are willing to take up the challenge during this time, upskill themselves, upgrade themselves. And I'm very pleased to inform everyone here, both the President Ding and the National Vice President of SME Malaysia are both our learners of the ELM graduate schools who are both doing our FLQ DBA program. And this program is the first and only one FLQ DBA program approved in Malaysia. And there are many such successful people like them who are in our program. So we look forward to more hungry people and also very driven people to join our program and join our fraternity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nicholas. So back to Dato. I think we need your vision to see, do you think that this situation will go very, very long? What possibility will be the end of conflict between Russia and Ukraine, or this conflict of interest between Western country and Russia?
I think let me summarize some concerns of mine about Malaysia first, very quickly.
Please. Yeah.
There are some very good views given by the panelists here just now. As an economist, it's very easy to look at the analytics of the three terms. One is production, distribution, consumption. So everything affects these three, and connectivity amongst them. To the economist, there's also another word, opportunity cost. You do something, you have to give up something. Another term that we think about is the welfare, economic and social welfare of the people. So when these three important areas, production, distribution, and consumption, are negatively impacted by the war because of various disruptions in fiscal infrastructure and so on, definitely the welfare of the nation and families and individuals or businesses will be negatively impacted. For example, when the ringgit is depreciated vis-a-vis the US dollars, although US economy is not doing well, for some strange reason, people will look for the US dollar as a safe haven. When our ringgit depreciates, the cost of technology is going to be very high. Education overseas, etc., etc. This means the long-term capacity and capability of our country to move to a higher level of competition vis-a-vis Korea and other countries will be very badly affected. So our capability and capacity to innovate will be affected. And this means that amongst countries, we will not be amongst the first, second rank of countries in the world in the next couple of years, unless we have the domestic capability in technology, digitalization to drive us. But the fact is we do not have. So one economic term that we use is called the terms of trade. That means for something that we produce in exchange for another is getting worse and worse. So it's not just a visible trade that we cannot sell things, but it's that we have to buy things more expensively. That's very important. Now, we have a lot of difficulties even during normal times, but when the pandemic comes, this has also negatively impacted our aspiration to have a larger middle income class. And this is a very important part in our political economy, because the larger the middle income class, the better the country. But now this has a serious setback, So the chances of increasing the proportion of middle income class will be delayed for a long time. But worse, the poverty will increase, relative poverty. So this is the type of situation facing us in the next couple of years. And I think that it's not just SMEs that must have their own emergency response committees, etc., to adjust. The macro and political initiatives of the government become very critical. The role of the central bank to ensure that we have a financially robust system such that the rate and number of bankruptcies would not be increased, that we have access to the necessary financial resources. And we have already noticed that last 2 years, because of the pandemic, this is so severely strained. And now with this war, it will become worse and worse. So how many SMEs would go bankrupt? How many families then would be affected, and so on? Obviously, the unemployment, but more seriously, underemployment. That means a mismatch between quality and the type of things they do would increase. So these are the serious things that immediately we must address. As to whether the war will end sooner or later, actually nobody knows. Nobody knows the mind of President Putin. I think if Ukraine is allowed to be a neutral country, probably he would stop the war. But then it's a matter of the battle of ideology. Here is a real battle of hegemony. And US-led Western countries would use this opportunity to make sure that they have to win this fight, to make sure that Russia or any other authoritarian governments will not emerge to be the winner. So this is going to be a very tough battle, you know. It's not going to end so soon. And even if it ends overnight, there are still the pandemic. And if you notice the pandemic, the new variant and so on in China is another challenger. So the world is therefore very unsafe for us.
All right, it seems that we are having one of the most challenging time within a century. You know, we have the pandemic, we have all these global conflicts, and we have the economy, and then we have all these issues. The only good news about the economy is that EPF is giving 6.1% of our savings in EPF. I think this is the only thing that we can laugh when we are looking at it. But back to the issue, or the challenges that are addressed by all the panelists. What should we actually do if we ask a very direct question? The business community would ask, what should we do? Should I just close down my shops and my business and we wait for a better so-called opportunity or chances to come back? Or like what you guys have said, that within the challenges, there are always opportunities. It's only that, are you ready or not? So, President Ding, 你可以给大家一点建议吗？现在到底做生意的朋友应该要很直接一点的做什么
？OK， 讲回是说我们中小型的哈，这2年里面大概官方的数字微型的大概关闭了100间。如果不是关行的外面呢，大概整200间，所以我们这些已经过滤了这2年的挑战哈。现在我们要自制的怎么样去面对这个复苏这个市场，怎么样开这个市场，然后我们市场开了，然后我们做的生产的那个 output 又做不到，有订单做不到。刚才也讲过了，就是说外劳，这我们中小型现在都是有一个 direction 怎么样去跑，好像达定讲的，还有呢大都可以讲的，还有经济的方面的话，大都 Paul 也是有讲过这些东西哈。所以说我们中小型就是说看这个企业怎么样去应付，是说应付了。刚刚就是说，我们就是为了就是说这个大家选择去做，可是付出了，那个就是 output 做不出，生产做不出来，因为人工不够，外劳大概回了100多200万，所以这200万我们马来西亚很多年轻的都去跑那个摩托Grab Food 这些东西，所以我们的人就少了很多， 其实说这个人都是跑到那边，然后有的女性的都是在家做网站的生意，所以我们有各种各样的难。现在又来一个这个打仗的方面，我们就更糟糕。为什么？东西一直涨价，什么东西都涨价，哪一个东西不涨价？所以我们要怎么样面对这个呢？我们是中小型，就是一边走一边做，一边计划是照计划。现在这个中小型呢，我接任这个总会长呢，我是也跟政府讲说，怎么样帮忙这些中小型跟这个微型跟中小型跟变成说中型跟大型。如果大型的话，他们在搞上市，这个是另外讲啊。所以面对的这个是很大的挑战。你说我们这个中小型这2年很压力，已经压力了，已经是说开放了，有机会再冲了，又不够工人，那怎么办？没办法，你这个东西是说你 output 少了，你的本地的工人就加高一点，那你的东西是消费者的，又是放在消费者的身上，就是起价。
是，
那你也起了，现在东西也是一再战的，又来一个打仗，所以我们做中小型的，我们也是说一天走一天算，就是说也计划是以照样计划，就是说我也是跟我们的会员说，一定要走出这个国家，有一个量，你那个工钱你可以提高，就好像国家政府就说2025要提高薪水高的，嘴巴讲，我认为是没用啊。政府一定要怎么样去协助这个中小型，怎么样去培训他们，因为你没有培训他们，没有去实行他们的话，没有教他们的话，他们怎么样会提高产量、品质、quality 这些东西，还有怎么样做出口、品牌都要做的。所以这些的过程，我们的中小型，尤其是我们华人的发现率比较高，所以他们是自己做自己的。就是说培训的话，现在年轻人他们都会在网站那边看怎么样去克服这些的难题，还有怎么样去做。所以中小型是说走这2年是真的不容易，所以中小型还是刚才大都可以讲的，还是要做出口。你没有做出口的话，你不能够改进你的那个生产的提高那个品质跟那个品牌。这个是我们中小型那个厂家的一个计划了。
是，
谢谢。
当然呢，如果我们能够做一些出口或是对外的这些贸易的话呢，整个风险就能够分散的不同的地方哈，那就不会完完全全的依赖一个市场而已哈。一个市场毕竟它的量还是有限，第二它风险就会集中在一起。那刚刚呢其实 Mr. Ding 呢有说到，就是大家可能要找的这些员工啊，或者是 talent 啊等等不足哈。那我们在这边呢也提供给在看我们直播的朋友们哈，你可以就是在直播的时候呢 like and share 然后呢 tag 3位的朋友，那你就可以呢优先和我们联系呢，并取得你所需要的这些人力的资源哈。So you can actually do a like and share, tag 3 friends, and you get a priority lane to access to talents where we have a lot of talents looking for jobs and looking for opportunity. So back to the business question to Datin. We always talk about cash flow. We always talk about if we have resources, we have one very limited cash. Where should we put in this kind of situation? Should I go into investment? Should I go into expansion? Or should I go into savings? Keep all the money and then prepare for the next opportunity.
Yeah, maybe I'll link to just now the question you asked. What would my thoughts be for business owners?
Yeah.
I think 中小型都需要转型。
是。
那转型是从里面到外面，就是从老板的思维， 老板以前做东西的方法 ，Now we are in a new norm, we have to do things differently。然后第二个转型就是公司的转型 ，because I think many businesses are still very traditional。So including 就是 cash flow 那方面是有钱就买 stocks， 一有钱就买厂。其实是不是钱应该放在 marketing？ 就是因为我们需要有 sales， 然后才背后 after that we can do the rest。So 是不是for 中小型企业我们的转型都是要从里面到外面，甚至我们的 cash flow 要放在哪里也是一样。因为我们发现虽然在这2年里面遇到很多问题，但是市场上还是有很多投资者。市场上不缺少钱，市场上是缺少好的生意模式，所以 really profitable businesses that can not only see profit but also see cash flow, that is somehow lacking in the market. And I do agree with all the respected panelists here today. I think one of the things that a lot of business owners in Malaysia need to look at is how to export. I mean 是不容易的一件事情 but I think eventually we do need to go to the world. Yeah. Thank you.
Any advice from Dr. Grace? I mean, regarding the investment, the cash flow. Yeah, what's the next step for the SMEs?
You will see that those SME who are able to pass through the past 2 years during the pandemic, they are the survivor. So the past 2 years, if you happen to speak to many SME, they will tell you very difficult, but they are able to sail through the challenges. And you will see that those who are able to sail through are those very good in managing cash flow. And they don't simply borrow. Because, business, a lot of businesses, when they start their business, they will start to borrow first, then they will spend. But you can't actually keep on spending without sales. So when during the pandemic, you will see that those who are very sensitive to the market, especially uncertainty kicks in, they will see that they will tighten their expenses first, keep the fixed costs very, very low. Because what we need is, we need to survive. Yep. We need to keep the fixed costs very low, turn everything into variable costs first. Because variable meaning to say that when there is a sales, then the cost comes in. So try to do back to back. I do agree with Datian's, meaning to say that I can't, perhaps I can share with you my personal experience. What we do is the past 2 years, because stock is only an asset, but you need to change a stock and make it become a sales. So if you keep a lot of stock and you cannot turn the stock into the sales, meaning to say that it become a cost. It may also become expenses when the stock is near expired. So hence, my personal experience is I do back to back. The cost may be higher because you do back to back, but you actually keep the cash flow easier to manage, and we become very flexible and able to expand the business in terms of variety, in terms of quality and so forth. Because the past 2 years, although we have a lot of challenges, but the opportunity is still there. Because those who are not able to transform, they will lose the business. When we are having the cash flow, we know how to manage it, and with the very strong R&D, like what Professor had mentioned, the R&D, domestic R&D, you will be able to take the business. Because you see, when it's very hard for us to cannibalize sales when the market is boom, is in the booming situation. It will be very easy for us to cannibalize sales and open accounts when others cannot do it. So hence, if you actually look at in the past, every economic crisis, you will build another 10 years successful people. It depends on how we sustain it, see through the challenges and put through it. And I would say that the past 2 years, those SMEs able to pass through the past 2 years. This Ukraine war, to them, is another situation. And I don't think SME will go bankrupt, but I think they may defer in terms of recovery. The deferment, then it depends on how fast the war will end. But even though let's say the war is going to end soon, say, But we also need to look at how is the commodity market, because the commodity market is actually impacting, is contributing to the inflation. Then how will, because like what professors mentioned, whether we like it or not, the world is still looking at USD. The interest rate is still looking at the USD. The US central banks, whether they rise the interest rate and so forth. But the good thing is recently, because of the Malaysian central bank, we did not actually increase the interest rate. That is something good. Because the moment, if let's say Malaysia central bank, we did not follow the US and increase the interest rate, it actually give liquidity and more money into the market to spend. So at least it will not hurt so much. That is to me is the right decision. Okay. And then with the lower interest rate, it actually helped the SME to borrow more, to expand, because this is the right opportunity for us to expand the business. To me, the past 2 years, we can borrow to do digitalization and so forth. If let's say we borrow to manage a fixed cost, to me, it actually widen the cost in your company. But now it's the right opportunities. So with the low interest rate, and you see, a lot of things come with the demand and supply. The demand of food is still there. Okay. The demand of product, it will be there. It depends on how fast it actually returns, how fast it actually increases. Okay. So that is the situation. So I still think that now, whichever SME is able to sail through the past 2 years, they will be able to sail through. And now it's waiting whether they are able to expand or not.
Yeah. Okay, so as a conclusion, we have addressed a lot of challenges and struggling, but we cannot avoid that we have opportunities in sight, because we still need the economy to run. The people will need to spend. We shall need food and everything. So the opportunity is still there. Dato', any add-ons?
I agree with the two ladies, Tatins and the President Singh. They've given very good insights. First of all, we have a very small population. So unlike China, even though they have difficulties, they have a huge domestic economy to play with. So given this, the advice about how to exploit the depreciated ringgit for export is a good idea. But of course, not all the SMEs are involved in exports. So they have to identify how to do it. The second important point is to remind ourselves that in the medium term, we have to restructure the cost structure of doing business, because all businesses are stuck with fixed costs. You cannot undo a factory. You just simply cannot. You cannot dismantle it. But moving towards AI-driven, digitally driven approach to solve some of our problems would be the way forward. So that, as Tatin Grace says, if we can convert most of the fixed costs into variable costs, that would be great. And that's what Help University is going to do through our Apple Q program. That's very important to understand fixed costs, variable costs. Now, the third point to remind everyone is, and we all know the customer is king, but more importantly, cash is king. So we must have a lot of cash in our hands, and to use the cash wisely, that's all. So that if there's an opportunity to exploit, there is cash to use and not to depend on borrowings, which is also not easy.
All right. So it seems as the business community has to think about the value and the worthiness that every cent that you pay, not only on the cost, on the talent as well, the people that you hire to run your business. Is it worth, in previous, when we have very good environment, we can spend to hire more people to do our job or to run the business. But now we might have only, enough sufficient cost to hire one or two. But that is a very important talent. So if you need any good people, you have to be very, very good in looking at talent, whether it's good for you or not. Shall we answer some questions?
I agree with you. That's why we cannot stinge on investing in people.
Yeah.
Very often, that's the first budget we cut, and I think that's wrong. You must have a good team of people. People matter more than technology.
So this thing I would like to ask additional comment from Dato. So how do we determine whether this is a good people, a good team member, a good staff or a leader to be in your company?
Okay, very basic. The first one has to be character. If you are a dishonest person, you cannot want it. So reliability, responsibility, accountability, that's very important. The second one is that this is the character and attitude part, disposition. The second one is we have to upgrade the skill sets. That's why we together are here today. How we can, as cheaply as possible, share our expertise to upgrade very fast the talent pool. And to share the talent pool in some ways. That's the most important.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Of course, we have some questions right here regarding talent because it seems that we are very good, or we are actually focusing, the MOU signing between HELP and YYC is focusing on the educational part to help staff and the business community. So is outsourcing a good strategy for the business in this situation or conflicts? Like YYC, you have been the source of talents and team to help the business. So they would like to know about, the strategy of outsourcing, letting some other people to help you do it. You save costs, you share the resources. How do you comment about that?
Yeah, just now Dato was saying converting, both Dato also saying converting fixed costs to variable costs. Definitely outsourcing is one way to do it. Because first of all, we have to know that we are actually very blessed with talent. Our talent can go anywhere. So for example, recently after Singapore opened up, many Malaysian talents went to Singapore. And so therefore, because of that, there is a huge lack of talent pool in Malaysia. So, but we can do things differently. So I think business owners now have to be very creative. 一定要很不一样，很创意，一定要跟之前很不一样。So if in the past we can hire a whole finance team, for example, maybe now we need to outsource AR or AP, payables or receivables. But having said that, boss must still be able to look at the financials, because sometimes I find bosses also don't look at financials. So bosses must do the basic, the most important things, and then can leverage on accounting firms or other types of service providers to outsource the not so essential things out. So I think being creative would definitely convert more fixed costs to variable costs and survive at times like this.
OK， 好，总结来讲我们用中文稍微的总结一下，基本上今天我们谈到的就是确定的，就是现在呢面对很多的挑战各式各样的经济上的、汇率上的这个原材料短缺上的等等。但为了要让各位企业家继续的生存下去，这是第一大很重要的元素，就是要怎么样降低本身的每月基本的这个我们说的开销或者是成本，让能够把自己的这个商业的寿命拉得更长。一直等到曙光到来的，或者是说经济慢慢复苏的那一刻。那当然有很多的方法，包括你要降低你对人力的一些依赖啦，刚刚大家都有说到的，可以自动化啦，投资啦，甚至 outsource， 让更多专业的团队来帮你处理公司里面的东西。那老板自己本身也要提升以前呢你可以说我不会这个，我就请一个人来帮我搞定。CFO 啦什么的，现在如果你本身自己有这样的一个能力跟 skill set， 那你可以节省很多的资源你也不需要在花钱上那么的担心请到不对的人，或者是钱花了但解决不到问题。所以很多时候呢，还是要回到你自己本身，还有你跟到底谁在共事我们在现场有没有哪一些朋友想要交流跟提问一下 ？Any questions from the floor? Would like to interact with our panelists right here. We have a few minutes, a couple of minutes.So that we could hear from the floor. Not only we are discussing about this topic, maybe some other comments or some other field. Anyone? I think, in classroom, they always like that one. We got used to it already. When I was a student, I also stay very silent. So, when teacher look at us, we try to avoid, don't look at the teacher. Okay. Better don't look at me, okay? All right, any other questions? No? Or anyone like to raise some comments or opinions about the topic? Yeah, please, we have a gentleman right there. 不一定要问问题哈，也可以说说自己的看法哈。来，麦克风有打开吗？来，我们看一下麦克风有打开吗
Hello.
好，有了，好，谢谢你。
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Kelvin from my Swaziland Berhad. I'm a food manufacturer, and I quite got impact from the pandemic and the Ukraine war as well lah. So
Can we know what kind of food you are actually manufacturing?
bean curd.
Bean curd,
food
okay.
joke.
Bean
Yes.
curd.
Okay. So my question is, either we can as an owner of the business that we can control some of the thing like the variable cost or the fixed cost. So what if it really from the political perspective, right? Something that we can't control, like there's a very dangerous word came out recently about the Cold War. What if this Cold War, this thing really come into our country, then we have to mix side. And then what is this impact to us? Because this is we can't control, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing any exports or imports?
No, not. I just apply in the local market.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone, any panel like to give advice? Mr. Ding? 中文叫什么哈？应该是豆腐腐粥啊。OK。
好像说你做一个视频的哈，第一，那个我知道那个船运太贵了，那个黄豆的东西，这个是每一个人做生意是跑不掉的。然后就是说，你买这个豆的做这个豆皮或者做那个豆浆啊什么啊，豆的之类的，那黄豆一定就起得很厉害。可是你要起顾客说，你怎么起这样高啊？这个不行啊。所以你又可能说你起15%，最多是起到18%。这个是我们做食品的，常常都是这样的。我们平时的时候没有发生意外的时候，我们起6%，他就给你 cut 到3%。我了解，做食品的我了解。所以你的本身。你要怎么样去做这个 R&D， 去学习这个 R&D， 怎么样去做这个 high-end 的 product？ 比如说你要做到怎么样做出口，怎么样做销量比较长一点。这个比如你应该要找大学的跟你合作，是怎么样去做研究这些东西。这个是很重要的。因为你不然的话，你一直走下坡啊，我们的利润越薄啊。我跟你是一样的，所以大家都是头痛。所以我是一直创新啦，好像达丁刚才讲的话，现在的生意不像15年、20年前的生意了哦。所以你一定要去创新，怎么样去梦想，怎么样去想，这个你要自己去做，你要自己去想。你想得出来，有时候梦想会成真的，你要看你怎么样去做。最重要是你底先打好。比如说我们做食品的，你这个东西怎么样在冷藏里面，怎么样能够销量长一点，你怎么样做出口。我本身头一站带这个中小型跑出国外，4月27号我在柬埔寨会带我们这个中小型的41个人，30多家公司去柬埔寨去交流，看看那边有没有生意做，或者我们就 import 东西进来便宜。你如果等到那个 RCEP 3月18号开放了，如果你不去改进，中国产品进来便宜，那你怎么样做？你要用你的智慧怎么样去参考？如果是说你想不出，找几个朋友来喝杯咖啡聊聊天，尤其是打定这个也是很专业，所以这些东西你要去怎么样去变？这我来讲，我是在这个食品业从37年了，所以我一直在变，我每一天在变，每一年在变。你不变的话， 你根本不能够生存。
OK，
谢谢。
明白。
答到你的问题吗？
来，我们也请Dr. Nicholas 来给大家讲一点。
Thank you, President Ding. Maybe I just conclude what President Ding 讲 using 4-letter word. 四字，我们讲适者生存。It's not the survival of the fittest. It is the few days ago I was discussing with some of my colleagues. It is the survival of those who can adapt. Most adaptive. 在这个乱世 this is the like President Ding says. How do you adapt next? Oh, thank you.
I give you, I don't know the industry, but I'll give you this very quick view. You are not an exporter, so you do not benefit from the depreciated currency. So one way is look for the export market, but it's a very competitive industry. Korea, Japan, China, and so on. So you depend on the domestic economy. And the first thing that hits you, like all the other similar manufacturers of your product, is the cost of soybean. That is common already. So that means you have to improve on your productivity and cost of the technology of producing your product. How fast you can do it. Now, this product is not an essential good. So there are substitutes. So that means the demand elasticity, like economic term, will hit you. Depends how good, how tasty, how cheap, and so vis-a-vis other market, other competitors. I don't know your market share. So whether what you do will maintain your market share, or you're trying to do something to improve your market share, etc., etc. So there are immediate short-term impact, the cost of soybean, but you cannot also export. But can you also differentiate and sell something out of the soya products, and not what you are doing? Now you are selling to restaurants or direct to consumers. So these are some of the things to consider.
All right. Thank you, Dato'. I believe that the gentleman lets you know how to face the uncertainties. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know about the agenda of the different countries or the economy, or even within the country. We do not know what's going to happen next, whether we are going to have a general election or how, and stuff like that. So the uncertainties is actually a very worrying part of business community, I believe so. But I think the only thing that we can do is to prepare ourselves, to brace ourselves, and keep yourself always plan B, plan C, and plan D. If you can do it, okay? Yes, President.
我讲三点你 OK， 我们那边做如果要做出口好像你可以在 Matrix 那边，你打进去 Matrix 的那个网站，你注册那边，它有 MAG grant 的话，每一间公司是给300千，所以我们如果商家不拿是白不拿，所以你那个在网站那边。你就可以了，你就导入你的资料放进去，你做个 member。你要 member 的话，他如果以后是说开放了，全世界开放去展示什么东西呢？他就是说一间公司呢，他会给300千。所以这个你还没有做出口之前，你要做你自己。刚才大多哥讲的，你要 ready 你的产品先，
是
你 study 你的产品先，可以出口了没有 ？ready 了没有？可以了没有？可以了，你就冲，就没问题了。谢谢。
你是刚刚进做生意吗？是第二代吗？因为我看上去你应该是第二代。
有样看的，这个像二代吗？这个也像二代
因为
这个也是二代，对不对？
因为我跟你分享一下，因为我自己本身是银行家，从一个银行家跳去做企业，其实很辛苦，因为根本是不同的东西，不同的领域。但我学习到一样东西，就是你可以看有时我会坐在那边看，你做企业的人你要知道怎么样去喜欢这个挑战，因为它每一天都是挑战的。然后你要很清楚的知道你自己的方向， 和谁是你的伙伴，就是因为我们在我们的 supply chain 里面，我们会有很多伙伴，然后这些伙伴哦，你要怎样把几个好的伙伴，就是 supplier 哦，跟你一起就是一起共进退。因为如果你是第二代，你应该有很多的 supplier， 所以你不会只是一家 supplier。所以呢，做一个企业家，你真的是要看世界经济。你从世界经济再看去马来西亚的经济，因为有时候世界的经济，好像来 Ukraine 跟 Russia 的这个 war 这个战争哦，其实马来西亚因为他们是我们的 sanction， 我们是 sanction 他的，就是我们出口去他们的国家其实不到大概 0.5% 这样子，还好的。但是为什么我们会被 impact 到呢？是因为这个是我们是属于 indirect 的，因为它是供应链出现了问题，就是这样的情况。所以如果你是把自己的这个主业哦，要把它发扬光大的话，坐下来看一看谁是你的供应链里面的好伙伴，把他们抓得紧一点。我这一个东西我是在这2年的 pandemic 我学到的。当 pandemic 出现的时候，我跟我自己说糟糕，我刚刚才进场，我现在就要关门吗？我说我不会关门的。从一个银行家把它挑出来，我不可能在这么短的时间我就要证明我就认输的，我不会做这件事。但是你自己本身是第二代，你的基础已经在那边了，所以你坐下来想谁是你的伙伴，去找他们坐下来谈。因为当你的生意出现问题，如果尤其是你的 supplier 出现问题的时候，他们一定是先知道先的，让他们跟你说，一起度过那难关。你有问题，他一定会有问题的。然后呢，当这些伙伴变成你们的一个供应链里面的一个好伙伴的时候，一起度过。我为什么会这样子说？因为最近呢，我们因为那个鸡，因为这个 Ukraine 它去 affect 到很厉害的是那个鸡肉，因为这个鸡肉的问题在去年已经发生了，然后现在因为 Ukraine 是出那个叫什么动物的粮食嘛，对不对？所以当它的动物粮食起的时候，是不是很多东西都会起？那个鸡肉本身就已经很贵了，它可以在这么大概3个月里面涨了30%。怎么做？你知道这个时候当别人买不到货的时候，我还买到货。一定有他的方式的，坐下来去想一想，然后跟他们分享。你会把这个主业带得很好的。你的主业是一个稳基，你要把它讲带出去啊，其实就要靠你年轻人思想。静静的坐下来，你会知道哦，一定会过那个难关的。当我在银行已经30多年了。当我们在银行的时候，差不多每8年到10年就会有一次一直在转。当每一次转的时候，我们的业绩怎么做？它一定会有一个方程式，但是要很冷静的头脑去想，怎样把它走出来。
Okay. I have one comment. I certainly realize that the percentage of the percent of spending on bean curd for an average family is very small. So your strategy is to increase the family expenditure on bean curd. So how do you do it? It's an industry issue, and it's not just yours. If everybody stops eating meat, then of course the demand for your product will increase.
Yeah.
Now, these are the longer-term strategies. So if there are more vegans and so on, people will eat less meat, will therefore consume more bean curd because it's a very small item as per the total food cost for a family. So your strategy is like Pepsi Cola. Drink more Pepsi Cola vis-a-vis water and other drinks.
Yeah.
But it's a not easy strategy. The person will eat more bean curd.
But this is a long-term mission. Yeah. If you can achieve this mission, and definitely you and your competitors will all benefit from what Dato mentioned just now. But I believe that to conclude today, it's always network, skill set, and knowledge. So you have to turn all these things into your ability to sustain your business no matter which industry you are in. And of course, you cannot do it all by yourself. I believe that we do not have one Superman that you can manage everything by your own self. It's either you start to have your good team to help you, or you have to learn and make yourself more equipped with all this skill set. Okay, I believe that.
我补充一点哈，
来，请说。
好像他是第二代了哈。
是。
我的企业也是第二代的，大概12年、13年了。所以我是很幸运。我的女儿跟我女婿，他们都在公司里面，他们全部可以handle到完，所以我才会说180%做这个中小型，不然的话你两边跑不容易。所以第二代他就是说你的爸爸在生意里面已经扛了一条路，
对，
你现在怎么样铺这个路做好来收这个透的钱。
OK， 好，谢谢了那我们今天就到这边告一段落哈。Thank you very much to all the panelists. Okay, once again, can I have a big round of applause? Thank you to Dr. Chris, Dr. Paul, Mr. Ding, Latin Shin, and of course Dr. Nicholas. Thank you very much for attending the event today. We have witnessed the MOU signing ceremony between Help University and YYC, and this is a very fruitful session of forum. Thank you very much. We hope everyone benefits from it, and we shall end with the group photo. I believe that I'd like to have the photographer to take a photo of all the panelists right here. 来，我们来拍一张照哈。来，我们请各位就坐，没关系，就坐。Datin， Datin， 是 Datin， 刚刚没有看到 Datin， 来，我们请 Datin 来下来。Ladies and gentlemen, shall we take a picture together? 我们就站着吧来，我们站起来，一起来更加来。Mr. Ding， 站出来一点，来，我们的 President Ding 来就行。我们也请 Mr. Chow 来一起，来，一起来。Professor Yang. I think Dr. Paul would like to call upon some of our guests to take picture together. Anyone else? Okay, good. Okay, have a look at the center. "我相信呢，今天的这个 forum 呢，给了大家一些不一样的刺激哈，包括格局上要大刚刚呢谈到了很多，其实我们可能都很少会去注意到的哈，因为呢在格局上，我们很多时候呢都注重眼前的就短期的目标。但我们各位嘉宾呢都已经有谈到了关于中期、长期的一些规划，怎么样让你的领域一起发展，面对这个挑战，挑战是有的，机会也有哈。谢谢各位 ，Thank you very much, Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. We have refreshments ready for everyone. For those who like to enjoy some refreshments after the session, please proceed to I think we have a holding room at the foyer.